just discussing Doge really quickly. I think that there are very few Americans that would say that they do not support a reduction in waste and inefficiency.
Correct.
Especially when it comes to government institutions. So this is a bipartisan measure that Americans are supportive of. Doge has become incredibly partisan. First, can you tell me why you think that is?
I think it is about wars of credibility, of institutions, and of process. So something I think is
what does that mean?
This is really,
and speak to me emotionally. Like why does, I'm not talking about like politically why it has, I'm talking about why the average person on Twitter feels compelled to be so critical of Doge. Like, what do you think is what being communicated to them, and why are they having such a knee-jerk reaction to it, knowing that they do want to reduce government inefficiency?
For them, it's about Elon's complete and total judgment over this. They don't trust Elon. I would say that's it. So,
and is that fair?
Yeah, I do think it's fair. I do think it's fair.
Let's make that argument. What's the steel man against?
The steel man against Doge is that you have a person who is unelected by the United States, who is the sole power over what gets cut, which violates the Constitution, because the Constitution, the power of the purse, is within Congress. Congress gets to decide what programs get cut or not. He is, according to them, illegally shutting off and doing these things. And also, at times, has major conflicts of interest in many of the decisions that he is making.
What is an example of those?
The perfect example is right now. State Department was, my friend Ryan Grimm, he works with us at Breaking Points, broke a story about there was originally going to be some State Department contract awarded to Tesla for, I forget the number, it was like maybe 4 million or something. After Trump got elected, that contract went up to 400 million for Tesla's armed up Cybertrucks. And then they actually took the word Tesla off the website and changed it to electric vehicle.
Now,
okay, it's not great, right? Can we all admit it's not great?
So this is good. Before we move on, we got to appease people emotionally who see things like this and go, hey, this doesn't feel constitutional. Right. This feels manipulative. We feel taken advantage of.
Yeah. That's a pretty steel man. Pittsburgh steel.
So Bethlehem steel.
So it's like, that's why like I feel like there's a lot of gaslighting going on. And as much as we all agree we want to reduce government inefficiency, I mean, like Akash hilariously says it every single week here. He's just like, fire them all. Like, a government job.
98% of them can go.
So
99.
There is that feeling, but we have to give some credence to a situation like that. And there might be more context to this. There might be a more nuanced take to it. I get it. Maybe Elon could describe it. Sure. But on the surface, people reacting emotionally to it, that does look like corruption in another way. Right?
Like the Charlemagne thing. I heard your argument about this.
What was that?
Well, I thought it was interesting where you were like, hey, if you're a cop and you come to me and I'm like, yo, don't look in the basement. You're like, there's some shit in the basement. There's some shit in the basement.
100%. So, but also just the idea of like government spending. Going to certain people, like this happens on like a municipal level, where like the mayor is friends with the person that has the construction company, and that construction company gets the rebuilding project for the local bridge, and then he gets the kickback. Now we know that that's a form of corruption. When we see this, it's okay for someone to look at it and be like, that kind of feels like the corruption you're trying to scrub out. Now he might make the best vehicle for that job. It might be right to increase that spending. But I also need some transparency there, and you need to come out ahead of it, not wipe Tesla off the car. You need to come out ahead of it and gain my trust as an American and go, hey, this was the original deal. This amount was going to be spent over here. We think that this is better for these reasons, and that's why more money is spent there. And I totally get why you think this looks like a favor handed over. Like, stop. The American people are done being lied to. And when we see shit like that, we have such little trust. It's almost like a girl who gets cheated on by every boyfriend.
They kind of should have little trust. They're not wrong. They're correct.
The girl that gets cheated on by every boyfriend. The second a dude is talking to a waitress and she's laughing, the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, that motherfucker's cheating too. So that's what we feel like when we see that.
Yes, you're right. And I think it is important to talk about it in that way. And that's where it comes back to process. So like you said, we've got Doge, which is kind of unilaterally deciding what and what is not gets to be spent according to them. And so one of the interesting things I took away from your thing with Charlemagne. And if I were Charlemagne, what I would have said is, Andrew, it's fine to look, but they're not looking. They're actually acting. And the acting is the part where I think a lot of the liberals are I think, correctly upset. I mean, let's be honest. Like if George Soros or whatever was deciding what is what not getting spent, I mean, we would freak the fuck out.
You're okay with it.
Yeah.
You being not you, but like let's say conservatives are more okay with it because your guy is doing
Elon.
the cuts.
Yeah, that's right.
But if it was George Soros is a perfect example.
Yeah, they would
the right would rightfully.
Yeah, they'd be like, this is a constitutional crisis. Yeah, they're like, we need January 6th again. You know what I mean? Like it would be wild.
So then maybe the best way to do this is have Doge look into it, share the findings transparently, what they are doing, and then hand it over to
it would be Congress. So
Congress.
If you want to do this, like, and this is, you know, remember when I said process?
Yeah,
that is actually a huge part of it, because the real problem that they have is the unilateral decision making, the conflict of interest, possibly being over that. I mean, there have been a ton of shit like that, like the NLRB and other things. I'm sounding like Crystal right now. She's got a list like 15 pages long of all this conflict of interest stuff. And you know what I have to say? I go, yeah, you're right. I was like, you know, empirically, this is not good. Like when you look at it in that way. And now, if he had sold all of his Tesla stock, if he had actually offloaded all of this and he was still doing it now, I would have a lot more trust in that. And I think most people would too.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that members of Congress and others should be allowed, or anybody in the government should be allowed to be able to even have the appearance of corruption because of the way that corruption is now so bedrock into our institutions.
I was very hopeful for Doge, and then I feel like, honestly, they just kicked the wrong person out.
Vivek.
Yeah, not even just, I mean, obviously I'm biased toward him, but like his entire thing was, I'm going to use the Constitution. I'm going to do this in a way that is palatable, but it's going to be uncomfortable. And he was upfront about all that. The thing is, and Elon is just kind of like...
What shocked me about it is Trump's deference to Elon. I think that's the part where maybe you guys can help me understand it, because I don't... First of all, it drives me fucking crazy when Elon's in the cabinet room wearing a fucking t-shirt and hat and everybody else is in a suit.
Corny.
And he's standing in a room where, if you guys ever been in the cabinet room, the president's chair is bigger than everybody else's chair. No person ever is supposed to be higher than the president. There's a rule, there's a famous scene in The West Wing. It's like, when the president stands, nobody sits. And in my opinion, when the president sits, nobody should stand. Yeah. Why is Elon standing? Why is he? It just, to me, it's like, this is where the libs are correct, dude. Like, there's some weird shit going on here. I don't really get it.
I don't like it.
I can tell you
it's
my fault. Like, from talking to Trump, if Trump feels like someone has information that he does not have, he becomes a listener.
Yeah, he's a deferential. You're right. You're right.
The second he's like, you know something I don't know. And I think that's what makes him so much better than anybody that the Democrats had in terms of understanding the problems of everyday people.
Oh, sure.
Because unfortunately, I think, and the Republicans too, like, remember, he's not like a traditional Republican guy. So it's like, politicians in general, there is a snobbishness to them. This feeling of like, we know what you need. Let us handle it. And he's a type of person, just from that interaction that we had, who's like, the second you have information he doesn't have, he gets quiet and he kind of keys in.
Even if it's, what is the life of an everyday American? Because I don't live that life. You have it. It doesn't have to be what's the science behind blah, blah, blah.
You see this all the time. When he's in the barbershop or whatever, he's a genius, because what he does is he'll take your problem and he'll turn it around into the campaign. And he's like, that's what the greats always do this, is that they take the question.
Listen to what people are struggling with.
They go to the essence.
No, but they don't. How low is the bar for politicians that were like,
well, unfortunately,
oh, wow, this guy listens to us. He's a genius.
But then...
Well, what they do is they take you seriously, but not literally. So my favorite moment in a debate is when some lady in the 92 campaign asked Bill Clinton about the national debt. And it's like, she didn't really know what she was talking about. And he's like, she's talking about the economy. He's like, we've had 4 years of trickle down economics. It hasn't worked, all this. He didn't ask her the same question about the national debt. But the point is that he's like, she's talking about the economy. Like, he can see the truth behind it. Exactly. And that's what Trump, I think, is very good at. That's what all the greats are very good at. And yeah, I mean, continue, like, the Elon thing, to me, and this will make me very unpopular, I think it's becoming a problem. I think that this liberal, no, because right now there's a narrative online, which is, in my opinion, cope, is that a lot of these liberals,
what does cope mean?
Like, cope as in, like, they're coping, that they're coping, like, they're getting an excuse. Yeah, they're living in denial. There's a cope right now from the right that all of these liberal gatherings are astroturfed. And you know what? You're right. But the thing is that you
You're
actually
using a lot of terms that some people might not know.
Okay.
So in AstroTurf
means
fake.
fake grass, right? right? So like what it means is that a large people are being paid to protest. I do not think that's true. I think that
this has happened in the past.
This has happened in the past, and it is an integral thing. But that's actually what a lot of liberals said about the Tea Party back in 2010. They're like, the Koch brothers are paying for it. I'm like, yeah, bro, but you can't just pay people to show up and be angry, and you still got blown the fuck out in the 2010 elections. What I'm worried about is the perception, perhaps correctly, that Trump is not completely in control of his own presidency. And we do see some of that, like in terms of the priority. The priority right now is not only with Doge, it's like the media capture around this Elon as the force, where I think it should be on Trump. And Trump has, in my opinion, a 10 times better political understanding of America. Like, I think if his narrative of the election was about immigration and it was about the economy, what I worry about right now for Trump is he's absorbing all of this pressure where Elon is, slapshot cutting this, bringing people back by his own admission. I'm not making this up. Like, he's like, we fired people who were doing Ebola. We brought them back. Right now, they just fired a bunch of people from NOAA, the National Oceanic Administration, which those are guys who fly into the hurricane and be like, it's a category 4 or whatever. And it's like, dude, I've seen politics in the past. Like, the most dangerous thing a politician can do is misinterpret their mandate. So the most recent example we have is 2004, George W. Bush, the last Republican to win the popular vote. Republican, he wins that popular vote for one reason: keep us safe.
Yep.
Iraq, 9/11. Yep. You know what he does? Let's privatize Social Security. He's like, yeah, the American people voted for me. I want to privatize Social Security. Blown the fuck out in the 2006 midterm election. Not only that, Katrina. And what I'm worried about for Trump is, dude, even if it's not your fault, if there's a natural disaster and the Dems can point to NOAA getting, you're about to get fucking crucified, dude. Same with, you know how lucky they are that crash happened in the first week of the Trump administration? Can you imagine if that happened a year from now after some Doge cuts or whatever with the FAA? They would be destroyed.
So they will be responsible.
I am very worried for them that they're hitching their entire political reputation and the most critical part of your presidency, the first 100 days. If all history of a presidency is almost certainly the first 18 months, and of those 18 months, always the first 100 days. We're about 37 days or whatever when we're talking right now. It's not that much longer to go. And in that first 100 days, Elon has been the number one story. If I were Donald Trump or whatever, I would want my number one story to be historic or whatever executive action on inflation. I'd be having inflation press conferences every single day, and Tom Homan and mass deportation. That's all I'm doing. I'm just talking about Mexico. I'm talking about shutting down the border. I'm having Tom Homan on television every single day. Not to say he isn't, but he's drawing away.
Take control of the narrative. Elon has taken control of the narrative.
I think it's brilliant
right
Trump
now is the
to let this happen.
So I thought that for a time.
Like,
tell me why. Tell me why you think
Elon
that.
as a shield.
Right.
Let Elon, because all these cuts are going to be difficult.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he's still absorbing all of that energy.
But right now, everyone's looking at Elon doing it.
That's very true. I actually thought that for a while. I was like, maybe Elon is the whipping boy to like sit there and absorb. But I'm very worried that Trump in losing. This is why you were asking me about Steve Bannon. There's a reason, dude. I think Bannon is the smartest person in the MAGA movement, and Bannon is a person. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
talk that shit.
Absolutely.
Talk that
100%. He was MAGA before MAGA.
Real quick, before we get off this, if I felt like these were Trump's ideas to cut these things and Elon is doing it, I would be on board with you. Yeah. These don't seem like Trump ideas. They seem like Elon.
No, I agree.
And that's why I don't agree.
Can I double click on that quickly? Because there's a very important...
I like that.
I love that.
That's good. Yeah.
Indians, we talk tech.
We're talking tech. That's right.
You said that earlier. You didn't catch it?
I did say that earlier.
Oh my God. Yeah.
All right.
For all of our young listeners, back in the day, you had to click something twice in order to open it. Now I think we just have.
I thought he meant that as liking it.
Well, I meant like expand.
I might be too young.
I know.
I think you still got
let me like that.
Okay, go. Open that file for us.
This is why I was talking about Bannon. There are multiple theories which intersect. Like if you think of what am I thinking? A Venn diagram. Like the Venn diagram is that Elon is part of libertarian right. Like cut the government to the end of cut the government.
Yes.
Now Bannon would say attack the administrative state to replace the administrative state, as in the government itself should be the power, the determination of the path of the country, of business, of breaking up the centers of gravity that are non-governmental powers, Facebook, Google, etc. Elon is somebody who's very against something like that, much more like an anarcho-capitalist. And on top of that is like traditional conservatism, which agrees a little bit with this, but is also obsessed with like the religious right, constitution, etc. So like right now, my fear is that MAGA, while it definitely agrees with administrative state here, is that they are losing the capacity to make their argument that no, actually, and this is what Trump and JD, I think, believe, is that the government itself should have power over the direction of the country, should have the ability to tell social media companies don't censor, as opposed to having a billionaire buy it. Like, that's a nice workaround, but look, I mean, Zuck went on Rogan and said, oh, we're not going to fact check anymore. I did a post about Lyme disease. It got fact checked the next fucking day. And it's still not down, right? Yeah. And, you know, there's no enforcing mechanism within that. Only the government can fix that problem for me or for all Americans. So that's where I would say is like there's important theories of government which are very at odds right now.
So there is that like Bannon group. Like, and again, I don't think Bannon actually cares about the country as much as he likes like rallying people up for attention.
Really?
I think he's
I'm surprised by that.
I think he's a really, I think he's an acute listener. So I think he can like spot trends early. And I think that he's a good enough communicator that he can fan the flames of those trends early. And those things can grow to be bigger things. Now,
like the Nazi salute.
Sure, exactly. Right? Like that's like a perfect example of like he probably knew what he was doing and he didn't do it enough.
He definitely knew.
Yeah. So it's like, but there's a perfect example. Like he's not actually trying to like make it better. Like if you really cared about American and patriotism, you're not throwing up a Nazi salute because you would have some respect to all the Americans that died fighting the Nazis.
I think he hates liberals and he wants the media to
Exactly.
Yeah,
but again, I think it's just an attention-seeking thing, and like it's dog whistling. It's like, how can I throw a bone? Now, I think there are ways. That's why I don't take him like seriously as someone who actually cares about America and more someone who just cares about like causing ruckus and like getting some attention in the midst. Now, what I would say is that it's very easy to pacify the base that he's riling up. So anytime he riles some people up, you just need a headline to be like, Disney cuts all DEI programs. And then they go, all right, well, I don't like exactly. Anytime they start riling up, you just need a headline that goes, Doge to give back $5,000 every single month, and then they calm down. It don't matter how many fucking
Which
Nazis.
is not even going to happen.
Which is, of course, but neither is anything that Bannon says.
Well, I don't think that's true. I mean, like what? Like, what does he say that's
what's
going to
be executed?
Well, what about mass deportation, dude? Like, what about Trump literally ran on that? He could do it if he wanted to.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm not. Again, when I say like anything that Bannon says, of course there are things that he is supportive of. Like, I don't know like every single belief that he has or everything that he's ran on. And I'm sure that certain things like deportation is not a specifically Bannon thing. I think there's a lot of support for it.
Yes.
What I'm trying to say is there are going to be these people that can rally the support of the disenfranchised, and he's incredibly good at it.
He is good.
This is one of the things that, like, I don't want to get away from Doge right here, but this is one of the things I think the Dems really struggle with is that, like, they could very easily win the next election if they made this a class issue. Like, they just need to make it a class issue. Like,
it's tough for them, though.
Yeah, because they're in the pockets of the rich, and all the people that are running the party are these Ivy League trust fund babies. So if Ivy League trust fund babies are the people making the intellectual decisions for your party, you can't speak to the poor. Now, like her or dislike her, AOC, it doesn't matter your thought. People fuck with her because they think she's trying to help.
Yeah.
You might disagree with how she's going to help, but she comes across as a working class girl that wants to help. That's what Dems need. Bernie
and she outran